Actually, this is the golden question. What's the one single number we can trust for bringing our agent to production?
Right.
Yeah. And we think about this as a framework with 3 steps.
Hi, I'm Eusebiu Jecan, product manager for UiPath Enterprise Agents. I'm here with Radu Mocanu, one of the engineers behind agents. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Radu, tell us, what's been keeping you busy lately?
Honestly, a lot of stuff, exciting stuff, but mainly UiPath coded agents. We've built this amazing SDK and a CLI and an evaluation framework, developer tooling, and I'm looking forward to going into specifics.
Okay, so coded agents, or should I go straight ahead and call them agentic workflows?
Yeah, that's fine. We kind of use them interchangeably. So within UiPath ecosystem, a coded agent is actually a coded agentic workflow.
Yeah, so they come in many shapes and, let's say, many frameworks. What they do bring to the table is the flexibility you get by writing agents in code and using open source SDKs. With that, you can have deterministic business logic combined with powerful yet undeterministic LLM calls. And maybe more important than that, you have fine-grained control over when you call the LLMs and the exact context you give to the LLMs every step of the way. So, Radu, why should one build and deploy these coded agents with UiPath?
We realized that building a production-ready agent is very hard without the right tools for the job, right? Because as you said, real business processes are very complex. They are a blend of deterministic and non-deterministic stuff. To give you a concrete example, you may have a system where you fetch some expenses data, that's deterministic. Then you have to check if the expenses data is within company policy, that's non-deterministic. Then you may have conditional edging because you may want to escalate to a human to review if something goes out. We really understand the need for embedded orchestration, right? The embedded orchestration those agentic frameworks give you. There are a lot of frameworks nowadays, a lot of mature frameworks, and they handle things differently, but they share a key concept, which is state. So what is state? You can think of state as being a scratchpad, right? You have this agentic workflow, and the nodes communicate with one another. They can write stuff to state, they can read stuff from state, agents can do that, the same tools can do that. So this is what truly makes those frameworks agentic, because the nodes are aware of one another. Because state is explicit, you can have checkpoints. So at one point inside the execution, we can serialize, you can take a snapshot of the state, pause the execution, and then resume later on with some input from a human or a long-running workflow and so on. And sure, for instance, LangGraph handles this with interrupt mechanism. LlamaIndex has an event-based approach, right, with input required events. Those features are not only nice to have, but they became mandatory for reliable production agents. So we identified all of those needs, and this is how and why we built our SDK. So you start from the fundamentals. You take any framework that's tailored for your problem, and then you start to add things on top of it. You can use our LLM gateway with our AI trust layer using our chat models. Or you may want to use our document understanding service. You want to use maybe an index to perform semantic searches. We have pluggable tools for that. So instead of really defining a single way of doing things with a single framework, we are trying to meet developers where they are. We are trying to stay open, and actually this is the key concept. Everything is open source. So anyone can come and inspect our code and see what we're doing behind the scenes. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I heard you say that you can start with any framework and then explicitly mention agent building frameworks like LangChain, LlamaIndex, maybe OpenAI. Are these the only ones supported, or is UiPath truly framework agnostic?
Definitely framework agnostic. And this is by design. I know it may sound like a bold statement, and it is a bold statement, but we support any framework today. We have tight coupled frameworks and loose tight frameworks, right? And let me explain. So tight coupled frameworks, you get a lot of things out of the box. We have a really tight integration with LangGraph that also powers our low-code agents. And we have an entire open source repository with official curated integrations, right? You have an OpenAI integrations with the OpenAI SDK. You have Microsoft Agentic Framework integration, Google ADK. You also have LlamaIndex, right? And those integrations basically mean that you can use any framework of your choosing within our platform. And we come with out-of-the-box tracing with hotel compliance pans. We come with LLM gateway. We come with stuff like human in the loop. And also, once you publish the agent, that becomes a first-class citizen within your embed. So you get built-in governance and orchestration. And you also can use frameworks that are not officially supported at the moment, right? Because at the end of the day, we allow you to run any Python code on our infrastructure. So we made this integration contract specifically minimal, so any framework is welcome at the table.
Now we know that coded agents are typically built locally with the preferred tools, preferred IDE. What if I want to integrate my development experience with Studio and make it part of a solution so that I can have access to all the UiPath artifacts right in the development experience? Is there something possible, and what would mean to do that?
Yeah, so we've put a lot of thought into making the end-to-end developer experience a coherent one, right? And I understand why you would want your coded agent inside Studio Web, because with Studio Web, you get the solutions, right? Everything inside Studio Web is a solution. And a solution basically is a self-contained deployment unit. So that means that once your solution is done on your testing environment, you can promote it to your staging tenant, your production tenant, and everything will work out of the box. And within a solution, you can have multiple types of agents. You can have coded agents, you can have low-code agents, you can have classic RPA workflows. You can even have a Maestro process orchestrating all of them. So you get a lot of advantages when adding a coded agent in Studio Web, and this is fully supported today. We provide full Studio Web integration for this. So there are currently two ways of doing that. The first one is using the CLI. We have a push and pull command that synchronizes the files. And the other one is using what we call a local workspace. And a local workspace basically means that you still use our beautiful cloud canvas, but the backend for the file storage is local on your local machine. And you can benefit from stuff like Git versioning.
Up until this point, you mentioned things like push-pull mechanism, versioning, SDKs, and so on. So I cannot help but ask you, who is this for? Who can build coded agents, and how can they get started? Because, we used to position coded agents for those who are at least comfortable writing and maintaining code. Do you think that still holds true, or something has changed in the meantime?
So the short answer to this question would be coded agents are for anyone who can write some code, but I would even double down on that and say that coded agents are basically for anyone nowadays. And let me explain why. So first of all, we back everything with a lot of samples. So in our open source repositories, we have samples from deep agents, conversational agents, deep reg, all of those stuff, patterns for human in the loop integration. So you have those are real working examples that you can have deployed and run in our infrastructure in a matter of minutes using our free community licenses. But also, I believe nowadays the code is becoming the intermediary language, right? Because almost everyone is using a coding assistant. And if coding assistants excel at something, that is writing code. So you can spin up a coding assistant, and we make sure that any coding assistant will be successful in developing UiPath coded agents.
So basically what you're saying is that building agents is a paradigm shift that is imminent. It's here and here to stay. Now, in order to make this reliable, then we should also shift our thinking around the product. We should build our product with coding agents in mind. If I may, to have them as the first class citizen, the persona we think of when we are building our product. Can you give us some specific examples on how we are building that, and what are the changes that we are doing to adjust to make this possible and reliable?
We are building agents so that agents can build for us in return. Yeah. And there are a few ways we do to achieve that. For instance, take our CLI. When you develop a CLI, you have to have in mind the persona that will use that CLI, right? When you develop a CLI for a human, you may have human readable tables as output. You may have colors and stuff like that. When you develop it for an agent, they work well with structured output. So we build on this paradigm that everything should be JSON formatted, should be easily understandable by a coding agent, right? And it may sound simple, but this is fundamental. And another example is that LLMs are very good at reasoning and finding patterns. So we try to keep our CLI in this kind of a noun-verb pairing so that LLMs can easily generalize and use it and understand what it does, even if it's the first time they use it, right? And we also have Agents MD. Agents MD, you can think of it, it's like an onboarding document, but for agents, right? They tell the coding agent everything it needs to know for it to be able to produce a UiPath coded agent. And we also have skills. Skills are like patterns, like things needed by those agents to accomplish the bigger goal.
Since we believe that code is the new intermediary language, which basically means that the barrier, the cost of writing code lowers virtually every single day. Now, for someone new to agents, or maybe someone that has experienced only low code tools for building agents, what would be the triggers? When should they consider transitioning to code, and what would they gain? Because within UiPath, the path from low code to coded is a coherent, continuous one. Can you maybe detail on that?
When you choose to build a low code agent, you are making a trade-off, right? You are trading control for simplicity, and that's fine because you may have some simple workflows you want to automate, right? But when you get into more complex workflows, because you traded that control for simplicity, you may end up in a situation where you spend more time fighting with your agent rather than building on top of it. That might be the point where you should realize that, okay, it's time to go code it to benefit from all of the things I just told before. And indeed, we are trying to make this whole experience a non-disruptive one. And what we did for that, it's what we call today a system agent. And we have a specialized system agent that knows how to take a snapshot of a low-code agent and convert it to code. So you don't lose anything. Once you decide you want to go code it, then it's a very easy experience. You have one button in the UI, and then you get a coded agent, and you continue from there.
And to build on that, in the realm of agents, we have evals to measure the trust before moving to production. Still, to cover real life use cases with workflows, those can get quite complex. My question is, are there any specific techniques on how we can evaluate coded agents and more complex workflows?
Yeah. There are multiple techniques. I would mention two of them, which are very important for coded agents. The first one is custom evaluators, and the second one is node level mocking. Okay. Now let me get a bit into details. We ship 11 predefined evaluators, but they only get you so far, right? For a complex workflow, you need an evaluator that's tailored for your own solution, for your own business. So this is why we've built custom evaluators that are extremely powerful because they have access to everything, right? They have access to the agent input, to the agent output, to the entire agent trajectory. So you can actually choose what makes sense for you, what you want to evaluate. Given that it's code, you have another advantage, right? Because code is inspectable and structured. So you can benefit from stuff like unit tests. But unit tests are not taking into account the state, which is critical for agentic workflows, right? They are not taking into account the framework inner workings. And what we did to accommodate that is node level mocking. It's very easy to do that with UiPath. We have a decorator, it's called mockable. You just apply it on any function from your workflow or tool or agent or whatever you want. And at eval time, we're gonna swap in controlled responses for that. And a very good use case for this mockable is human in the loop. You may have an agent that escalates at some point to a human, and instead of having someone needing to manually approve 30 evals in an eval set, they should run end to end, and you can use mocking there.
I have an even more challenging question, still related to how you can gain and maintain trust in an agent. Hear me out. So, for an agentic workflow, it has many paths, nodes, and agents along the way. Inaccuracies do not stay local. They compound, they propagate, and what happens upstream might carry a larger weight because it influences everything that happens after that. Okay. But before I move to production, regardless, I still want to have trust in the entire workflow with its paths, nodes, and agent behavior. How does UiPath think about this problem? Is there a framework, a way to approach this?
Actually, this is the golden question. What's the one single number we can trust for bringing our agent to production? Yeah. And we think about this as a framework with 3 steps.
Okay.
The first step is evals coverage. And that basically means that evals should be discovered, not prescribed. So you should have a real solid understanding of the inner workings of your workflow or the abstract graph to be able to run relevant evaluations and to write them, right? The second one is evals coverage. That's basically what you mentioned before, that evals should carry different weight depending on how they influence the end-to-end outcome. And the third one is insights. That basically comprises of a heat map visualization with low scoring evaluators, high scoring evaluators, and with actionable data, right? And we are trying to achieve a point where we have this kind of framework.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. For agentic workflows to not only be powerful as they are, but also be useful, they absolutely need to be able to call tools or communicate with other agents within UiPath or maybe cross-platform. So how do we make sure with UiPath as a platform that we are and will remain an open one in this agentic automation space?
Communication protocols are critical. They always have been, they always will be. And we've seen 2 emerging protocols nowadays. One is MCP, right, for agent-to-tool communications. And the second one is A2A for agent-to-agent communication. We support them both today in UiPath, and our commitment is that we'll support also the protocols of tomorrow, right? So we are taking the open approach regarding this. And we actually went all the way. So take MCP, for instance. We have a lot of flavors of MCP available that you can configure. We have a remote flavor, right, where we proxy request to an existing server. We also have command and coded, which basically means that we host your server, your MCP server. We also have what we call an UiPath MCP server, where you can take any process from your organization and add it in an MCP. And then it will be discoverable as a tool for other agents to connect to it and interact with. And then we also have what's called the self-hosted server. And that is you run your MCP server using our Open SDK for MCPs on your own infrastructure, and that will self-register to orchestrator, and you will be able to use it within UiPath. We also have a platform MCP. That's also very important. We build MCPs for the outside agents. A platform MCP is basically an MCP that lets other agents interact with UiPath. So we really are facilitating these communications between other frameworks and other platforms.
One last question. And I know it is not advisable to ask this, especially in a space where things change and move so fast. But I will indulge. So please tell us what's next and what should we be excited for?
I can tell you what I am excited for, if that works. We are shipping fast. We are developing extremely fast. Every week something new comes, we understand it and we integrate it. And also the industry is developing very fast. If you think a bit about it, half of the things we talked about today didn't even exist a year ago, right? And I think this is the beauty of it, that we are just getting started.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.